Let the joyous news be spread, the wicked old witch at last is dead.
The power of Christ cometh bears you.
One major battle accomplished. I don't know what. I did a podcast at the game last night, and I had felt bankrupt emotionally and mentally a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, I had a second win. But last night I was like, what the hell am I going to talk about now? I didn't mention it last night, though, but we had a major storm here. We had the people cut our yard. And there's this giant anthill next to my house. And giant. And the storm came, and I guess they had to evacuate. They evacuated into my office, into my bathroom and bedroom. So to lead up to the game, I had to kill like thousands of ants. Between plays, my wife and kids were all killing ants all night long. So I got to do this thing, man. I was exhausted. I was exhausted emotionally from this game. And I slept late. I said, screw this, man. I ain't getting up in the morning to cover this team. What the hell is the sense? And all of a sudden, I wake up like at 11, 12 o'clock, and I see Chris Grier got mutually parted axe out of here. Man, old man, I didn't even need my Geritol from that. That was like like 10 shots of adrenaline. So I'm going to get into the mutually parting ways of Chris Grier. Listen, we don't know the steps that are going to follow after this. But this, the Mr. Teflon plastic, passive aggressive, soft as Charmin, hiding. You see, I showed the picture of him. I didn't even talk about it last. I want to talk. See him? He found a new way to hide with like the window half, and he was the binoculars. This guy is gone. He is the worst kind of GM you could possibly have. So his departure, mutually or otherwise, is addition by subtraction squared by multiplication. There's no other way to go about it. You would have to perform an all-pro miracle to shoot that bad again. Now, we're the Dolphins, you know, whether we built on the Indian burial ground or somebody ate a bag of black hats. I don't know. I guess it's possible. But however you slice it, you could bring in a corpse and just hold the corpse's hand with a dart and throw it at decisions and probably do better than Chris Grier. So whatever we got going forward, we don't have to see Mr. Passive Aggressive making fun of us and just like slithering on camera. And it's going to be addition. Now, is it going to be ultimately the production we want? Well, we got to wait and see. However you slice it, this is a time for celebration time. And the first song I ever liked was Kool and the Gang, Celebration. My mother had it on an 8-track in the car. I didn't like any other song, but I listened to that thing all day. That's what I'm feeling like right now. Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead, and Celebration. You should be celebrating. I don't know about the future. Look, there's things wrapped around Chris Grier. I talked about a source. I'm not really connected. Most, like, you know, I'm kind of like the outsider, loose cannon type dude. I don't get along with a lot of the time. I don't know why. Maybe it's me. I don't know. Maybe I'm a jerk. But I don't really associate or connect with the top people or have connections. But I have had one connection, and over the course of the season, the connection said that Greer is really on the hot seat. And last night in my podcast, I had said this. From what I'm hearing from some people, that Greer is definitely on his way out. Whether that means he's really on his way out, like out of the organization or into the upper management, I don't know. He's got to be gone. At least there's some sanity from the organization. And it was accurate. So me, who I don't think, I'm like Mr. Left Field for pretty much a lot of people. I got some, Jason Sarney, Steve Malloy, George from Finn's Faithful. There's a number of people that I get along with, but just the majority I don't. And obviously, Dolphins organization doesn't like me. But I do have a source, and the source was accurate. I didn't want to believe the source. It was telling me this, and I was like, I can't believe it, because the disappointment of seeing this clown back again for another year, it would have been too much. But the source was right. So here we are. I've heard so many people that I respect and I think are very brilliant, more brilliant football minds than me, have liked Chris Grier over the years. And we've had discussions. Another person I have to admit, I totally forgot. I don't want to forget him because he's my big guy, Alf from 3 yards per carry. Had been mentioning starting last year, because he's got real shows, not just one, he's really, and he said Greer's going to be probably moved out and maybe moved to another position. We got to see if that plays out, but he kind of knew. So he's out. Ross now has to make major steps going forward. There is some concern. I'll dig into a little bit. Some of the things I heard from the source, I was very happy with, most notably Chris Grier. Psst. Hey, did you hear Chris Grier's gone? Can you believe it? 10 years of seeing this guy in your face, and another 6 or 7 in the background being a major figure. Gone. The freedom. I had to do that whole, I think I did a 30-second monster kill, Power Christ compels you, ding dong, the witch is dead type thing, because it's got to be celebration, guys. There is a possibility. So with Greer gone, there is possibility. I hear somebody saying, I think it's Big O, saying we got to focus on Ross. I saw it in the comments. I'm getting to your comments. Ant killing and spirit killing from the Dolphins game last night has me slow, but I'm going to get to it. So I had to get to this first. But Ross ain't going nowhere, guys. You got to, that is fantastico impossibility. F1 makes him so much money. It's not business smart to get rid. It just makes too much money. A lot of people sell the team because, well, they're going to make an increase. If the team's worth $5 billion, someone will buy for 6 or 7. And so they're going to come out ahead. Ross is not doing that. It makes too much money. This is a prime team, no matter how bad it's been screwed up over the years because of where it's located. And with the F1 and all the other stuff that he built, he's never getting rid of it. You got to get rid of that whole concept. He's passing it off to his daughter. We just got to hope that Ross, while he made the right move with Greer, got to see how that plays out, if it matches what Alf was saying. And then what does he do after that? And I want to connect into what's going forward now. It's hard to explain, because you're on that side, but when you're on his side, you're fighting constantly to be relevant. And some people, they're fighting it on the Twitter. They're promoting themselves. They're connecting with all the big people, create blocks. I don't really like doing that. I like to, I don't like show, but I try to make myself relevant and create a place for myself by being accurate and honorable and doing the comments to connect with you. So I say things like, hey, dude, I've been on the anti-Greer train probably longer than anybody and harder, definitely harder than anybody. And so there is credibility with me. And so some of the things I'm going to say here, just attach that credibility, not to say it's going to happen. I always say, question everything, me included. Just take what I'm saying with some kind of grain of salt because of my past history. And I fought for the fans and my own integrity. So I'm going to say something here. I'm going to lay it out. I've kind of talked in the past. But there's got to be, what you got to do in everything is say, hey, I believe this, but there's these other possibilities. Now, this might have the higher percentage, what I believe, and these other ones are lower, but you've got to run the track on every single one of them so you could be accurate, or else you're trying to be a prognosticator. And that's what I try to do. So however you slice it, I like to call it the train of thought. You've got the train hub here, and Ross is sitting in that train hub going, you're out of here, Chris Grier. That is good news. That's 100% good news. Now, every branch out of that can create a varying degree of what that good news brings. But this is like extraordinarily good news. Great news will be how the rest of the stuff plays out. And so currently, I'm going to work on one track here. Ross, from what I heard, some of the things inside from somebody who's talking is that they thought that Greer, one of his major weaknesses was that he rushed young players in and didn't set them up right. And in some ways that's true, but if that's one of their top problems, then they're missing the big picture. Because young players should be rushed in to a certain degree. The problem is we were acquiring people that just not capable. They should have been taken later, like a Jackson, Eichenberg, even Jonah. Clear issues, even Chop. What we're seeing with Chop, he's really struggling. And so if that's their main concern, then I think they're missing a lot of the core elements. And we don't know. This is just one little piece. But the key is Ross has to understand. If he wants to win, if he wants to hand over an untarnished franchise to his daughter and his remaining time here, he's got to go back to formula and reassess. And the key reassessment is he don't know football. His buddies around him don't know football. Football is about one guy, a GM, who runs the show and he's not being interfered with. And if Ross can fix that and pair it with the removal of Greer, whoever you get in after Greer, our level of success will go up several levels. This does not mean Super Bowl bound or anything like that. But what it means is coherency. It means that we're not going to be insane and flipping back and forth because one guy wants this year and 2 years later this guy wants this year, and you've got all these divisions of power. You know, they say it's better to have a plan if it's a bad plan than no plan at all. And so we might have a plan for 1 or 2 years, but that plan changes, so it's not really a plan. So if you get a guy in here who is a real football guy GM, and he's replacing Greer, and Ross and his cronies aren't interfering, whoever we got, whatever we got around them, it will be more consistent and better. It won't necessarily lead to the top. Now, Champ Kelly, I've said for a while, Champ Kelly, they brought him in last year, and I said that he's likely going to be the new GM or Marvin Allen. I'm not really too big on Champ Kelly from his history. There's been some nice things, but some big misses. I don't think he's the top of the line, but he's going to be running the show now with McDaniel, who's going to coach to the end of the season. The source I had said last night, I didn't put it in a clip, said they still believe in Mike McDaniel. And I don't. I think that maybe if you had the Mike McDaniel now in 22 with a real build wrapped around him, he might have developed better. But at this stage, from still things that I'm seeing in year 4, he's not the guy. But I think they just want to keep him here, so they don't want to break the continuity. They want to give him a last chance, and maybe they don't want the interim coach pump to win 3 or 4 games and knock you out of that top pick. So we'll see what Mike McDaniel does. Champ Kelly's going to be handling all this stuff, but we need to not stick with Champ Kelly. We need to not go with Marvin Allen, who's definitely not involved. He's still going to be the background guy. So it's going to be Champ Kelly if we're sticking in-house. We need to move off Mike McDaniel. 2-2, and it's not because I don't think he can win. I don't know. You can have a different opinion than me. As long as the opinion isn't he's the greatest thing forever and he's being held back, or he's the worst quarterback ever, in the middle we can have a discussion. But his contract, some of the concerns about his injury, the rebuild this year and next year we're going to be terrible this year, obviously, but next year we've got so much cap problems. We don't have much talent. It's going to be a bottom end season next year too. And then you're talking, that's another year for Tua. Maybe you can ride him next year for the contract because it costs a lot of money to get rid of him. And then the year after, you move on to another quarterback. But you've got to get another cheaper quarterback and try to hit that 28 season with rookie contracts, rookie quarterback, a full roster, and then try to hit that mark. So you could draft a quarterback this year. It'd be questionable. I don't like being forced. But if we're going to suck this year and next year, you have 2 years to hit that mark with the quarterback. But you've got to. Tua's got to move on. McDaniel, I don't think is the guy. He's got to move on. But if you stick with McDaniel and you stick with Tua, what GM's coming in here? Unless they have already planned to stay with Champ Kelly. And if they plan to stay with Champ Kelly and they plan to stay with Tua and McDaniel into next year at least, that's not the best case scenario, but it's still better than having Greer run the show. Champ Kelly played football. Champ Kelly's more of a man-type character. He is that, in some ways, that erudite barbarian. And so even if that is because that's not the best case scenario is Ross says, all right, I'm changing my top formula here. I'm not getting involved. I'm going to go on the lookout for a GM outside the building. I'm going to get the best GM I can. I'm going to tell that GM in contract, in person, that you're in charge. There will be no interference. You can pick the coach. You can pick the quarterback. You can pick the guys that clean the toilets. That's the best case scenario. But at any rate, the loss of Greer, and even if it's not the optimal one, Champ Kelly and maybe McDaniel and maybe Tua for a year, whatever, it's still better. So we've got to just see what's going to happen here now. What is Ross really doing? He had no choice but get rid of Greer. It just became untenable in the media department. I've talked about their media department, how powerful it is, how they use algorithms and technology, and it wasn't possible to come back with Greer again after this showing. If they had gotten to 7 or 8, it would have been tenable to handle the media hit or whatever for one, but it became untenable. So they had to get rid of him. What do they do with him? And what do they do going forward? Are they going to continue to hustle so they can keep their power and corporate structure at the top? Or does Ross turn over a new leaf? That's the key. And, I've said a lot of things over the years, and a lot of those things have panned out. But this one, what I'm saying to you right here, is not, it's almost like running the football inside any offensive line. It's basic. It's not rocket science. So we've got to wait and see. Once the season ends, there'll be a lot of opportunities for GMs. And because right now they're working with organizations, they want to win. They're not screwing with things. So once the season ends, we see what happens with McDaniel. We see what happens with our GM. And the good news for a GM outside, if Ross does what I'm saying he's doing, even if he's not involved in this process, because you have Greer, the same old scouts. Look, we made draft picks this year. Some of them are pretty good. Some of them aren't so good. Some of them are long developers. But Marvin Allen, Champ Kelly, and the staff were involved. That GM might say, hey, dude, I got to come into this team, and this is a top pick that I'm not really, able to take control over. But they'll see that next year, too, will be a good pick year. And then they'll have control over that as well. And then they'll also have control of the final say over this coming draft. They'll have their own markers and profiles of the players that they can come in and kind of combine it together, that it might be a draw for the right GM, not a GM. Any GM's better than Greer, but the right GM with the right framework from the top could get us to where we're going. So I know some people think I'm Mr. Anti-Hopium or anti-fan or whatever, but I'm riding Hopium now. I'm going to wait and see what Ross does. He did the right thing with Greer. I do think there's some red flags around it, but I'm going to kind of go, no, the monkey, the eye thing, and wait and see. All right? However you slice it, next year will be more coherent than this year, and we'll be at a better trajectory. But if we fully got this thing with a new GM and Ross does his thing, we could be on a great trajectory. And whatever you think about Ross, and there's things I don't like about the guy as far as the way he handles football. He builds unbelievable, and you say it don't matter. Go to the stadium. My wife doesn't like football. She loved the place. He invests big money. He does want to win. He just doesn't know how to. And so if he just stays out, lets Garfunkel do the money things on the outside, and he just works on his buildings on the outside, and he finds the right guy at GM who's the football guy in total control, we have a chance to get off the schneid, to vomit up the black cats that we've eaten, and maybe exorcise the evil or the restless spirit underneath the stadium and find our way to sanity. 24 years without a playoff, when Wannstedt is the last guy. How long ago that is? I remember that I was in my 30s or 20s, late 20s. That's insane. So be happy, be excited. I am. I'm invigorated. Hopefully it's long-term invigoration, but I'll take it. I'll take anything I can get. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. I'll get back to you with more stuff. Smile. Greer's gone. Ding dong, witch is dead, the witch is dead, the witch is dead. Start building your own online sports book today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.